Hey, how's it going, do-it-yourselfers? Still working on the Prelude project, and we got a full day today. Today, we're gonna replace this driver's side CV axle, this outer tie rod end. We're also gonna replace that dust boot that's on the inner tie rod end, and pretty much the same thing on the passenger side. We're gonna replace that CV axle, outer tie rod end, and the dust boot for the inner tie rod end on this side as well. All right, so first things first, you need to obviously remove your wheel. We've already done it on the driver's side. So next we'll do it on the passenger side. And next we're gonna remove the axle nut. This is a 36 millimeter. If you're gonna be doing it with an impact, you probably don't have to unstake it, but if you're gonna be doing it by hand, probably a lot easier to unstake it first. We're gonna leave it on there for now. And there's this side. All right, next we'll spray some PB Blaster on the axle shaft where it goes through. All right, so while that's hopefully doing something, we're gonna come back here, turn our wheel, and next we're gonna come back here and try to loosen this locking nut for our outer tie rod. Obviously, if I had my locking wrench with me, that would be a lot better than this, but hey, you gotta work with what you got. There we go. Next, we're gonna remove our cotter pin from our outer tie rod. And then remove our castle nut. Next, we'll grab a hammer, hit it on the knuckle side. Until that happens. All right, next we need to disconnect this damper fork from our lower control arm, and this is held in by this 17 millimeter nut and bolt. So we get our wrench on the bolt on one side, and then remove the nut. And then get the bolt out as well. All right, next we're gonna get this outer tie rod out of the way, and we're gonna unscrew this and count the number of turns it takes to get this out. So when we put the new one back in, we can put it the same amount of turns so that the alignment is as close to what it was originally as possible. All right, so here we go. We got 1, 2, so that's about 15 and a half. All right, next we'll undo this locking nut. Then there's one clamp back here that I just removed. I didn't get it on camera, unfortunately. The camera was off, but after you get that clamp out, since this boot is, torn straight through, we'll just yank on this and get it out of the way. And then in order to get the inner part of this rubber boot, you need to get a longer cutter and cut the clamp on the inside like that. There we go. Next, it's time for our lower ball joints. So first the cotter pin, and then the castle nut. All right, more PB Blaster action here. And again, more hammer action. We have to break out the ball joint separator for this. All right, so here's a look at our ball joint separator. You want to get it in like this. You push the boot up without tearing it, so the top of it is resting on the knuckle side, and then on the bottom, you want to drive in the, put in the castle nut. You put it upside down. You don't have to, but this is safer. But then you leave a little bit of space so that there's space to push this up and this connected from the knuckle side. First, we just run it in by hand. Make sure everything is engaged, and look at that. Look at that. It's already loose. So yeah, it looks like the PB Blaster we sprayed on here did the job and got this thing loose. Now, I did take a day off after I sprayed the PB Blaster on here to go watch the World Cup. And I don't know if you can tell, but I kind of lost my voice. Note to self, soccer players on the television cannot, I repeat, cannot hear you. All right, so next we'll remove our axle nut. I left this on here just in case this axle wasn't loose inside the hub. We could use this to push it and knock it loose, but this axle is loose, so we get that out of the way. We get this bottom castle nut out of the way. Knock this out. There we go. All right, so we'll get our bungee cord next. Just keep this out of the way. Now we'll come back here on the transmission side. We're gonna use a pry bar to push this out. When you're resting this against the aluminum transmission casing, you wanna be very gentle and careful. There we go. Put our old part next to our new part to make sure it's a perfect match, and as you can see, it's a perfect match, minus a foot. All right, same thing on this side. Before we remove the outer tie rod, we're gonna knock that locking nut loose. First the cotter pin, then our castle nut, then some hammer action. There we go. And now we need to turn this and remove it, but this one is not loose, so we're gonna just temporarily put this back in. See if we can twist our inner tie rod. There we go. Now we should be able to get it out. 1, 2, 15, 15 and a quarter. There's also a breather tube on these rubber boots that we need to remove first before we remove the boots. Here's the rubber tube. I should be able to push this out of the way. All right, now we're gonna use the ball joint separator on this one because that's what you guys wanna see. And you gotta give the people what they want. So we'll slide in our ball joint separator like this, pushing the boot up, centering it at the bottom of the bolt. We get it hand tight. We'll go slowly. There you go. That's what you guys wanted to hear. I know. All right, next we'll remove this castle nut and then make sure that this axle can move freely. Okay, can move freely now. All right, same as the other side. We'll use our California privilege. There we go. Oh, need our bungee cord. All right, again, same thing on this end. We'll try to keep this straight. Push. There. So now we compare this to the one we got from Napa, and this one's a fit. So I guess Napa sent me 2 of the same part for the driver's side and the passenger side. All right, so there's a C-clip that needs to click into place on the passenger side. Again, this is gonna be a little tricky to put in here. First, we'll put it from the bottom, slide it in, guide it up top, and then try to get it as straight as you can. So first, you gotta make sure it's straight. There we go. And then we give it a good tug by the transmission side. Make sure it doesn't come out. That means the C-clip is engaged. All right, so before we put this back on, we're gonna take advantage of the space we have here and take care of our inner and outer tie rod situation first. So first, we're gonna clean off all the grease we have on the inner tie rod, and then we'll apply new grease. All right, so we ran into some technical difficulties, lost the video, but you put the dust boot back on. After you grease it, you put the clamps back on. It's time to put this piece back on the lower ball joint and our axle. So first, we'll line it up, push up on this one, line it up, drop it in, just like that. All right, next we'll put our castle nut on our lower ball joint, tighten it down. All right, next it's time to put in our outer tie rod. First, we put in our locking nut. We're gonna run it down all the way, make sure it's out of the way. All right, next time for the tie rod itself. And if you remember, we did 14 and a quarter on this. Start at a quarter and then engage and then go from there. So that's 1, 2, 15. I forgot to take out our nut. Some thread locker on this. All right, next we'll put this bolt on. Install our axle nut, then we'll jam. And we're done with this side. All right, so just got back from the store and it looks like we got the right part now. All right, it's more or less gonna be the same on this side as the other side. First, we get this fork out of our lower control arm. Then we're gonna slip our CV axle through here, kind of like this. First, we get the boot past this area here so we don't damage that. Then slide it in like this. There you go, it's in there. Once again, with the help of our pry bar, put this on. All right, next we're gonna put this bolt on. We'll try to line up the holes in our lower control arm with this fork. Tighten it down. Then the castle nut for our lower ball joint. Torque it down. Install our new cotter pin. Then we reapply new grease. 1, 2. Put it on here. So you want to look up the spec for it and get it down to manufacturer torque specification, which for us is 181. As far as the Prelude project is concerned, this car is in driving condition now. We're taking care of most of the oil leaks, the coolant leaks, the timing belts issue, all of that, so we can go drive this around. But before we do that, I'm going to take some time and clean underneath this engine, because as you've probably seen in the video, it's quite dirty, greasy, oily, you know, got coolant and everything. So we're going to clean that off. Actually, I just remembered there's an oil leak up top from the distributor that we need to fix, so we'll do a video on that. But in order for you guys not to be bored with the Prelude to death, we're going to switch things up, and next we'll get the Jaguar on the lift, go over all the things wrong with that car, do an introduction to that project, and get started on that. So if you're interested in either one of these projects or the other projects that will be coming up, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell notification, give this video a thumbs up. Check out my videos on this side of the screen, the suggestion box, also links in the description box as well. All right, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.